Imagine, you wake up one morning and the whole world is talking about a single case. Millions of people are glued to their screens. Social media is buzzing. Everyone is asking the same question. Why are Drake and Kendrick Lamar facing off in court? But what happened behind the scenes? What secrets will be revealed? Now, we take a look behind the scenes of this history-making case. Are you ready? Because what you are about to hear will change the music world forever. News channels around the world are running the same headline: Drake has sued Kendrick Lamar. Social media exploded that morning. Millions of people on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are debating whether this case is real or not. While some claim that this is a decoy, others believe that the rivalry between the two giant rappers finally broke out. The official statement from Drake's lawyer confirms the rumors. Drake has initiated legal proceedings against Kendrick Lamar. Fans gather in front of Drake's mansion in Toronto, cheering with Team Drake banners in their hands. In Los Angeles, there is a similar crowd in front of Kendrick's studio. Everyone is looking forward to finding out the reason for this case. Journalists and music critics are making theories on live broadcasts. Why did Drake sue? He is looking for an answer to his question. Some people think that the diss songs released recently ignited the fuse of this case. Others believe there is a much bigger secret at work. As the trial day approaches, excitement and tension are escalating. Everyone is waiting for these two giants to face off in a courtroom. When the day of the trial came, the front of the Los Angeles Palace of Justice had almost turned into a festival site. Thousands of fans, journalists, and paparazzi gathered in front of the building from early morning. Team Drake and Team Kendrick banners were flying in the air. Young people were having rap fights among themselves. Social media phenomena were broadcasting live and transmitting instant deceptions. Drake's black, luxury SUV barely made deceleration through the crowd. When he got out of the vehicle, he was surrounded by bodyguards. Fans were screaming, some shouting Drake's name, while others were shouting slogans supporting Kendrick. Drake, with a serious expression on his face, walked towards the courthouse with quick steps.
Soon after, Kendrick Lamar's vehicle also decamped into the crowd. He also got out of the car with his bodyguards. Kendrick, calm and confident, headed into the building waving to fans. With his arrival, the crowd once again became enthusiastic. The journalists said, "Drake, what do you think about this case?" He was shouting, the cameras were flashing. Everyone was eagerly waiting for these two giants to face off in the courtroom.
At that moment, life stopped for a moment in Los Angeles. Everyone was holding their breath so as not to miss the first moments of this case that will go down in history. When the doors of the courtroom were opened, the atmosphere inside changed in an instant. The hall was packed. Jurors, lawyers, journalists, and special guests who had come to watch the trial had taken their seats. The judge was sitting decently on the bench in his robes, banging his gavel on the table from time to time to ensure the order of the hall. When Drake and Kendrick entered the hall with their lawyers, everyone's gaze was turned to them. Both of them seemed quite calm and confident, but the tension between them was almost decapitating the air. Drake moved to the defendant's row without taking his eyes off Kendrick for a moment. Kendrick, on the other hand, bowed his head slightly and took a deep breath, then sat down in his seat. Journalists were whispering in the back rows of the courtroom, taking notes and recording every little detail. The jury members, on the other hand, were carefully studying the facial expressions of the two artists. The judge said, "Order." He silenced the hall by shouting. Then he made a short speech, emphasizing the importance of the case and the seriousness of the parties. At that moment, there was only one question on everyone's mind: what will this case change in the music world? While there was silence in the courtroom, the prosecutor stood up and started reading the indictment. "Your Honor, this case is not just a case of two artists, it is a case of the future of music," said. The prosecutor detailed the basis of Drake's case against Kendrick Lamar: accusations of copyright infringement, unfair competition, and misleading the public. Drake's lawyer entered the defense in a strong tone of voice. "My client wants originality and effort to be preserved in music. This case is a turning point for all artists, not just a personal matter, he said. Kendrick's lawyer said, Kendrick Lamar is an original artist who has always made his own way. These accusations are baseless and are aimed at damaging my client's reputation, he responded. The jurors were listening carefully to the arguments of both sides, taking notes and making the atmosphere even more tense with deceptions between them. Let both sides prepare to present their evidence, the judge said, decrying a brief break in the hearing. The air of the hall was a harbinger of the approaching great confrontation. During the latter part of the trial, excitement was at its height in the courtroom. The prosecutor came to the stand with a large file and said, Your Honor, we have song recordings, social media messages and studio images signed by both artists. On the giant screen, images of Drake and Kendrick working together in the past were shown. Drake's lawyer played audio recordings of Kendrick, who claimed that he copied Drake's style and melodies in some of the lyrics. There was a deep silence in the hall as the jurors put on their headphones and listened intently. Kendrick's lawyer said, These recordings have been taken out of context. My client is practicing his own art. He submitted counter-evidence, saying, The original demo recordings taken from Kendrick's studio were played to the jury. In the light of the evidence presented, it will not be easy to make a decision, the judge said, decrying the short break in the hearing. Everyone in the hall was wondering how this evidence would change the course of the case. At the most critical moment of the trial, Drake's lawyer called a surprise witness. When the door opened, a famous producer from the music world entered the hall. While everyone was looking at him in amazement, the producer came to the podium swearing. The producer said, I have witnessed both artists working together in the studio many times. The melodies and lyrics of some songs are really very similar to each other, he said. This explanation created a huge wave of whispers in the hall. Kendrick's lawyer immediately objected, This witness has lost his objectivity. He's just talking based on sensations. Let the witness's statement be recorded, but the jury will make its own assessment. The judge calmed the atmosphere by saying, The jurors, along with this newly arrived testimony, began to reweigh the course of the case in their heads. The tension was very high in the hall. Everyone was wondering how this surprise witness would affect the outcome of the case. Time was almost frozen in the courtroom. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned to the courtroom to announce its verdict. Everyone's eyes were on the jury president. Drake and Kendrick were waiting motionless in their seats with their lawyers. Journalists were standing by with pens and cameras in their hands to capture the slightest reaction. There was such a silence in the hall that it seemed that everyone's heartbeat could be heard. The judge said, Has the jury made its decision? When he asked, the president stood up and gave a brief nod. There was a slight tension on Drake's face, and a deep curiosity in Kendrick's gaze. The chairman of the jury handed the envelope to the judge. Everyone in the hall gasped as the judge opened the envelope. At that moment, the fate of the music world depended on a piece of paper. The judge put on his glasses to read the verdict and broke the silence that echoed in the hall with a sentence. The decision is being announced. Double quotes. Breaths were held in the hall as the judge opened the envelope and began to read the verdict. The jury has announced its decision. After evaluating all the evidence and statements. After a moment of silence, the judge completed his sentence. The jury has decided that Kendrick Lamar is not guilty. First there was a short shock in the hall, then a big applause broke out. A great expression of relief and triumph appeared on Kendrick's face. Drake leaned his head forward and took a deep breath. The disappointment was being read out of his face. As journalists flashed, Kendrick's lawyer congratulated his client. Drake's team quickly left the hall. This case has once again demonstrated the importance of fairness and authenticity in the music world, the judge said, closing the hearing. Outside, fans and the media were celebrating this historic moment. Social media was talking about the beginning of a new era. As Drake and Kendrick left the courtroom, a new page was opening in the music world.